Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Culture Book Podcast. It is episode 6, The Eaters. For our real-time listenership, sorry we are a week late, but we're hoping to get back on schedule. Apologies to everyone who had to wait a week before reading the next chapter. I'm joined, of course, by Sheridan.
Hi.
And how are you today, Sheridan?
I'm good. I'm good.
So what's the thing we're going to do now?
So you recap where we're at.
Yeah, okay. And how long have I got?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right.
Ready for the timer to go.
So there's a war in space. Horza, our protagonist, is a shapeshifter. He's on the side of the Adirans. They're giant lizards. The other side is the culture, which is artificial intelligences that keep some pet humans. Horza's being tasked to hunt down a lost artificial intelligence, a mind. He's met up with Crakeland's Free Company, a bunch of pirates, and he's on the Vavach orbital, which is a giant ring in space, and he's about to crash into the ocean.
Well done. That was exactly 30 seconds.
Yeah, I really nailed the timing on that.
It's almost like you can see the timer from where you sit.
I can have the timer available to you when you go. So Sheridan is now going to attempt to recapitulate the chapter in 30 seconds. So your time starts.
We start the chapter with Horza escaping on a crashing ship. It crashes into an island where he survives and is captured by a bunch of skinny, decrepit sort of meth heads who are called the Eaters, and they're led by a big fat dude called Fuishong, and chaos ensues and gross stuff, and he escapes to a shuttle that the culture set up for the departing apocalypse, destruction of the island, and he gets away.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't...
Horza escapes his escaping by escaping, doesn't he?
I got really nervous by the timer counting down, okay?
So it didn't help things to be able to see it.
It did not help things to be able to see it. But I didn't summarise the sneaky second chapter, which they keep putting in.
The sub-chapter.
The sub-chapter.
Yeah, if you haven't read the sub-chapter, just remember we're doing this by numbered chapters, so if you see a chapter heading that doesn't have a number, you need to keep reading.
Yeah.
So there is the sub-chapter. Do you want to quickly recap what's in the sub-chapter?
We come back in contact with the mind from the beginning, who's trying to work out if it should escape or kill itself or doesn't want to get captured. It's got a lot of shit going on.
Mind your language.
Sorry.
I thought I only figured out this morning that part of what's going on here is you've got the refugees on the beach, the Eaters, who are worshipping a false religion, and then in the sub-chapter we actually kind of meet a god in the form of the mind.
Oh, yeah, that's a good...
Yeah.
Although, false god as well?
Pretty godlike. Yeah. So the chapter opens with Mip dying and Horza's shuttle crashing into the ocean on the doomed orbital. The clock's ticking. This is one of those. It's funny because in video games we're kind of used to this idea. You have the quest with the ticking clock, but that wasn't quite so normal. Although ticking clocks, I guess, have been a standard in literature for a while.
I think it's a pretty set in stone narrative device.
Anyway, but what we do have, because when Ian M. Banks was asked numerous times what this book is about, the answer he generally gave was it's about a dude getting shipwrecked, which was partly him just not wanting to get into the deeper metaphysics of what he was trying to do, and also not trying to be pretentious about the fact there are deeper metaphysics going on. But to the sense that he said it's about a dude getting shipwrecked, this is the shipwreck.
Although he's kind of been shipwrecked a few times now.
Yeah, Horza's had a really rough few days.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in this one, he actually is wrecked into water. Turns out to be fresh water, so he can drink it. That's nice. That's a little detail about the orbital. Although then he's like, oh, if only it was salt water, I could float better. And
and he's turned into Crakeland. I did forget that in my...
Yes. Well, we're working through the chapter, so
hopefully
we'll get to that. There's just a line here about trying to get out of the crashed shuttle as it sinks into the water. And then saying, he struggled down through the water to the rectangle of light. So you've sort of got this imagery of, I thought, sort of rebirthing going on here.
I'm not sure how many vaginas are rectangular, but yeah.
Only the best ones.
It depends what your penis is shaped like. Sorry, there's a square peg round hole joke there that I can't get over.
Can't quite get. There's a nice little line about Yalson in here where Horza says to himself, it'd take more than a tactical nuke and a billion-ton ship impacting a berg the size of a small continent to polish that girl off. He found himself smiling, remembering her. Absence make the heart grow fonder?
Must do.
Okay, so yeah, and then while he's floating in the ocean is when he decides, hey, I'm going to change. I'm going to become, trigger the change and become Craiglin.
I mean, he's an optimist, Horza, because the only reason you change into Craiglin is you think you're getting out of there.
Well, at the moment he's floating towards an island.
And actually true, he's not met lots of...
Floating towards the island, he's seen a shuttle on the island, there's people there, they must be nice.
He's wrong.
Yeah, it's funny, I always, all our lives we're told horror stories. I've never actually met, I mean, I guess I've been fortunate because it tends to be fatal. I've never walked into a community that's hostile this way. And I have travelled a lot of the world and been to some off-woods places, and generally people are interested in who the stranger is. They don't do horrible things to you, thankfully. Yes. Anyway, there's a lot of swimming. I mean, it's like 6 pages describing swimming.
I will say the 6 pages of swimming is pretty hard going.
You weren't a fan of the aquatic
No,
descriptions?
I'm more of an action gal.
Okay, and then we meet the eaters.
Well, it's a bit of a misnomer. Because they're not eating very much.
Or anything good.
So I would really like to know what exactly it is they are eating.
Well, they're eating the fermented guts of the fishes, but they're throwing the fish meat out.
They seem to be wasting a lot.
And the bark and the moss and the effluent.
Yeah, they're not very happy folk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a great life.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a extreme drawing out from a pretty hostile atheist of what religion's like.
True.
But we want to know. Everyone wants to know what you think about the eaters. Is that your first time encountering them, Sheridan?
Well, I mean, they do seem and feel like cult members.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, I didn't have much. I thought they were kind of... I liked the chapter. It was really cool, but...
No, I mean... Okay, well, I mean... I thought it was fun the way that we just get little hints of what's wrong on the island.
I felt like it was known pretty quick that they were...
They're skinny, they seem unhealthy.
Well, as soon as Fui Shong gets introduced...
Yeah. So describe him.
Well, he's basically... It's a chubby fantasy, right? Like...
You better explain what you mean by that.
Well, he's a massively fat dude sitting on a litter, which I didn't know a litter meant one of those, was what the name for one of those carrier devices. I thought it was, what my cat craps in.
Well, if you put some, if you put some poles in and had people carry them around on it, then that would be a litter, yes.
Yeah, anyway, so you learn something new. They use the word a lot in the chapter.
Yeah.
So he's a hugely fat dude who seems to be forcing these poor people to not eat any food.
Is he forcing them?
Well, I'm very curious to know, though, what is Hui Shuang eating?
He seems to be eating the good stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he must be eating a lot of good stuff. Who's cooking it?
And he's eating his followers.
Are they his followers, though?
Yeah, they're his followers.
So, number 20... Is it number 27?
Yeah.
So they bring out a captor.
Well, yeah, but he's a follower who tried to get on the shuttle.
Oh, sorry, I must have forgotten that bit. I thought he was just a abandoned
no.
Horza type.
No, he wasn't. He was one of the
well, that explains why he's named a number, because the first is called number 1.
Mr. First.
Yeah, Mr. First,
Yeah. So we meet Fui Song, who's repulsive and turns out to be a circus freak turned prophet.
Mm.
And I've got to say, currently in Canberra, we've got a lot of anti-vax protesters taking over the city, which is a real sense that COVID's a pretty mild apocalypse, compared to bigger things that could happen. Obviously very serious for those who've lost loved ones, but it could have been a lot worse. But we've still, even with a very mild problem and some pretty reasonable solutions like get a vaccine, wear a face mask in public, we've still got very similar to, end of the world cults rampaging around the streets, carrying on in very non-rational ways. So it's I certainly got a lot of resonance out of that for these crazy people whose response to the imminent destruction of their immense home, because the surface area of this orbital is many, many times our planet's. So if you've lived on that all your life, it would be a whole universe just to itself. And their response is to the imminent end of this. The place they've lived is to go down this religious rabbit hole.
Yeah, but how do you know that that's what made them go down the religious rabbit hole?
Oh, because they wouldn't last very long with their diet. It's just because it's the end of times that they're sort of running down the clock to their annihilation.
How long do you think they've been living like that then?
A couple of weeks.
I don't know. They seem like they've got like scabs and sores and stuff. Like I think they've been living like this for a while.
Well, since the culture said they were going to destroy the orbital.
I think it would take probably like 6 months for you to get like that.
Well, we don't know the exact time frame of.
I mean, I guess Fui Shuang definitely hasn't been there his whole life because he's been on the circus freak train.
Yeah. We're getting painted a picture of life on the megaships that's less idyllic than the earlier one. The idea that you've got these despotic rulers of the ships, and they're keeping these, gigantic, distorted human beings like, the pyramid-shaped Fui Shuang for entertainment.
Mm. Mm. So Fui Shuang was fat before he got on the island, I've just realised.
Yes.
So maybe he's not fat from eating too much food, but from his, genetic predisposition.
Yeah, that could be too. But he does keep eating his followers.
Yeah.
Like he's got a whole set
Well, he only ate 27's brain, and then they chuck him in the bin.
Oh, and all the bits that he sucked the flesh off him.
He could suck that much off with those teeth in that big of a time.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, he seemed to eat a fair bit of him in the grisly description.
Mm.
What did you think of the torture porn throughout this chapter?
Oh, I thought it was quite good.
Yeah.
I don't mind a good horror story.
Okay. Because we...
Sounds makes me sound like I'm an absolute psycho.
Yeah, oddly. This book was written in 1982, so long before we got, Saw and Seven and things like that.
True.
Not that I'm saying...
Although peak, Freddy Krueger, Halloween, Schlockhover, video.
Yeah, but they weren't really as drawn out as this.
It's just because you weren't reading it.
Yeah, I'm not saying Ian M. Banks invented this genre by any means, but it's certainly a very striking execution of it. I mean, I felt sick reading this numerous times.
Oh, I didn't. It didn't bother me at all, actually. Yeah.
Like, bring it on. Just a nice description here of Fui Shuang of rising from a thick cone of neck, gazing out over concentric ramparts of chins. A bald dome of puffy flesh contained a limp and rambling length of pale lips, a small button nose, and slits where eyes must be. Not even where eyes are, but where eyes must be. And then we meet Mr. First, and I kind of thought this was cool the way that Mr. First, we're kind of thinking maybe he'll turn out to be someone reasonable. And
he's horrible.
Yeah, he turns out to be the worst of them all, yeah.
He's clawed his way to the top of the pile, and he's hanging there.
Yeah.
Oh, but can we just talk about when he suffocates 27, first of all? It is 27, isn't it? Not 28.
I can't recall, and I don't have it in front of me, but yeah.
Anyway.
Suffocates the dude who gets murdered, yeah.
So, do you think he's... See, because technically if he's on the litter, that means the litter suffocates him.
I felt like there might be a hole for genitals.
This is where I was
or
like,
pooping.
I feel like there's some sort of...
He could have been crapping on him. He could have been teabagging him. It's.
I like to think he's teabagging him.
Right. Why do you like that?
I don't know. Just... That's weird.
Just what we're going with.
I mean, you brought it up, I'm going to say, not me.
There was a sense of something sexual in the way he was loaded.
I absolutely agree. That's why I said it's chubby fantasy.
Yeah.
The whole chapter. Although you don't really see... I guess he gets fed the 27 once.
Yeah.
And then there's women licking the blood off his belly.
Yeah. I mean, this obviously isn't the first time this has happened, though. There's a fair
I
old
feel
ritual,
it felt like this was not their first rodeo.
They know what's going on. So there's the description here then. Be told then, gift of the sea. So gift of the sea is Horza. That we are the eaters of ashes, the eaters of filth, the eaters of sand and grass. The eaters of sand and tree and grass. The most basic, the most loved, the most real. There's never actually a mention of God here, I don't think, but there's a sense that they are loved by some external entity.
Well, I thought they were loved by Wei Shuang.
Really? He doesn't show much sign of loving them. He's saying that they'll be loved by something else if they follow what he's saying.
Yeah, but don't cult members usually follow, like, their prophet? Like, it's not really about the externality, it's about the...
It's like the Catholic Church where they worship the church, not the God, yeah.
I don't know if the Catholic Church and the cults are the same,
well,
like,
all about
in this...
eating body and blood, aren't they?
Let's keep the, respected... religions, and they're like, it's like, no Jonestown. Like, this is more Jonestown than...
We'll keep the Catholics out of it. Okay. There's a little description of how the shuttle doesn't have any markings on it. Described pointlessly unhelpful and unrealistic to the last. The culture refused to place its trust in symbols, so there's no symbol. So
this is the shuttle that has been left there for everyone to get onto.
Yeah, you were worried that the culture was going to destroy this thing, and
they do seem to have left a pretty shitty shuttle though for this island. I guess they looked down.
How good a shuttle do they need to leave?
They looked down and they went, not sure this lot's making it.
Oh, and the poor shuttle giving instructions not to look at what's going on.
I feel sorry for the shuttle.
It's going to upset you. I feel very sorry for the shuttle.
So Horza's...
Hang on, I just want to... This thing about the culture and symbols, there's an important line here saying that just as it could not imprison itself with laws, impoverish itself with money, or misguide itself with leaders, so it would not misrepresent itself with signs. So that's a big hard look at the culture's view of itself.
Isn't this one of the debates, though, that happened between the Catholics and the Anglicans, the Protestants? Because the Protestants didn't want to, worship, Mary and...
Mariolatry.
I don't know what that is.
That's the worship of Mary.
Oh. Okay. Litter, Mariolatry, learning every day.
Yeah. This also gets to iconoclasm. That's an interesting comparison. What do you mean by it?
Well, I'm just saying, there's been in, theology, and accepted, criticism of the worshipping of symbols and...
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that seems to exist in religion.
Yeah, I mean, my very first introduction to Buddhism was a teacher saying, here is a picture of a statue of Buddha, and we should always remember that one of his most important commands was that no one should ever make a representation of him. And yet, here it is.
And the Muslims don't like the comic representation of Allah.
And that's the representation of Muhammad.
Oh, sorry, Muhammad.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I don't think
Muslim listeners.
I don't think they like a representation of Allah either, though, so you're on firm ground
cool.
there. Yeah.
I mean, I guess symbols is different, though, to a representation of a god, though, or a prophet.
Yeah. And, I mean, Islam's interesting in that they got some quite good ideas about, a bit like the culture here, not wanting to be represented by any particular symbol, but for the word of God to be their thing. And then they got a little attached to the shape of the words. So it's just kind of, I guess, a human thing to want to have some sort of symbol to rally behind. And it's, literally Islamic State with their black flags with the white writing on it. It's the kind of thing I'm thinking about there. And there's an interesting little bit of description here of Hui Song's religion, where he's describing, for lo, the godless ones, the most hated, the despised by the despised, the atheists, the anathematics, have sent us this instrument of the nothingness, the vacuum to us. That's talking about the shuttle. But we shall not waver in our faith. We shall resist the lure of the nothingness between the stars where the godless ones, the anathematizer, the vacuum exist. And this really reminds me of anti-vaxxers who are so angry about the impacts of COVID but are refusing to get the vaccine, which is the one sure way to get the whole thing
get out
behind
of it.
us.
Although I think they feel like, actually, I'm not getting into that. I'm really not going to get into that.
Yeah, but there is this whole thing that, we have a solution. These people have a solution. Like, yeah, their world is being destroyed, but it was an artificial world to begin with. So, and they're refusing to cope. They're saying, this is our structure around us, and we're just going to go out with it.
I sort of actually have started to think there might be a worthwhile psychological analysis of Fui Shuang.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he would have had a very tragic, awful life that's taken him to this point of desperation where he's going to, he's going to kill himself with his followers. That is what is happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little different from Jonestown in that they're not handing out the Kool-Aid. The bomb's just going off around them.
Although, I mean, there is the slow Kool-Aid of eating the rotting flesh.
Yeah, well, there is that. Okay, and then we get the horror of Mr. 27.
Being eaten. That's when Horza's like, ooh, damn.
Now, you're like, he can't have got that much food, but it does describe a half hour or so of leisurely paced eating.
Yeah.
You
really found this disturbing. It didn't really bother me, actually.
Well, you like horror movies more
than
I do.
I mean, I liked the chapter, but yeah.
And then looking back now, they're really bunging it on. They eat what others leave, what others will not touch, because they want to be close to the fabric of fate. Yeah.
All right, so can we talk about Horza's poisons?
We can.
He's changing.
Yep.
Because we learned a little bit more about his changing, I think.
Yeah.
So when he's when he's tied up, he says he's going to sweat out poison.
Yes. And he remembers the training at the academy. Yeah.
To try and, break the ropes. But he realises in the morning that he hasn't changed his hands because he's been waiting, because he might need to change them to Craiglin's fingertips one day. And so the acid eats his hands. Yeah. But we also learn that he can potentially kill himself by puncturing himself with his own acid fangs. Yeah. So that's interesting. That it must be a huge level of control because the acid can damage him.
Well, the venom's different to the acid.
Oh, actually, interesting. I sort of thought it was all the same.
No, different stuff.
Right, okay. Well, either way, he is built with these fluids that are inherently dangerous to him as a person.
Yeah. But there is also a description how culture citizens can produce any drugs they want any time and also have a self-euthanization option. So this, for all the more advanced humanoids in the galaxy, they've got a lot of biochemistry available to them.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's the long night when Horza's tied up and just thinking about things before Mr. First comes out. And there's a lot of self-examination about the nature of the culture, what do you think of that? Anything?
Yeah, I did think a bit about this when I was reading it, and now you've put me on the spot. The thing that is definitely motivating him to side with the Edirans is he just doesn't want to side with the culture. Yeah. It's, like, why people vote Labour. Yeah. At the moment, because they just don't want to vote for the party in power. So he's not committed to the Ediran philosophy or ideology or relationship. He just doesn't want the culture.
Yeah, I think he's almost delusional about the positives of the Edirans just because he's so opposed to the culture.
And what was your thoughts on it?
I mean, there's this line here that, where he says, the culture was different. Horza could see no end to its policy of continual and escalating interference. It could easily grow forever because it was not governed by natural limitations. Like a rogue cell, a cancer with no off switch in its genetic composition, the culture would go on expanding as long as it was allowed to. It would not stop of its own accord, so it had to be stopped.
I mean, there is like this sort of underlying issue that he seems to have where in order to the reason he hates the culture is because they invest and rely on machines.
To the point where the machines are running the show now.
Yeah.
So the people are just pets. They're a sideshow.
And so there then becomes this kind of, I guess, ideological warfare about like what it means to be a living person.
Yeah.
And he seems to think that you need some sort of flesh, because I mean, when we get to the subchapter, obviously these minds are sentient.
Oh yeah.
That's been clear all along, but what is it separates them from a humanoid seems to be flesh. That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to take that up. So then in the morning, we finally get some payoff for Horza's special abilities.
Yeah.
They've been set up a long way in advance. They haven't been very useful until now. And finally, the acid turns out to just work in the nick of time.
On one hand, at least.
Who'd have thought that? Well, it got there in the end on the other one. It was a suspenseful cliffhanger. But it did just enough damage to the ropes for him to get free. And then, I shudder, but, Fui Shong eats one of Horza's fingers, which, as we know, is full of poison, and poisons himself. And I've got to say, it took me a number of times reading this book to figure out that's what had happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, you didn't get it till I told you this morning.
No. It was actually that I just forgot.
Right.
But I did get it.
Okay.
Yeah, because he talks about that. Because Fui Shong tries to, vomit the finger back up. Yeah. And Horza's like, it's too late.
And then there's the description of breaking off the bones of his finger and throwing it in the fire.
Once he gets to he does it before he gets to the shuttle.
Yeah, and I haven't reread The Wasteland lately, but I'm sure there's something about throwing bones in the fire or something. This is a deep callback to the title of the book.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of stuff in The Wasteland. It's a good guess.
I mean, that's kind of there was obviously the first, Mr. First says to him, pain is just biology. Is that what he says?
Mm. Horza's switching off his pain receptors all the time.
Yeah, anyway. And so then when he pulls the bones off, he says it to himself. But it was kind of funny that I thought, well, he's thought about this phrase about the meaning of pain when he is like a being that can switch those receptors off and on all the time.
Yeah. I mean, he still has to live with the consequences. I mean, losing a finger's traumatic.
I assume it grows back.
We'd think a shapeshifter could grow his finger back, yeah.
I would have thought so. Although it is his finger, because he hasn't changed the hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's the final line by Horza as he runs towards the shuttle that pain isn't real anyway.
That's the line that Mr. First says to him when he's tormenting him.
Yeah, right. So then we got Horza's interaction with the shuttle. What do you think of that? The shuttle does have a name. It's Seal Sir.
Oh, I thought it did have a name.
Mm-hmm. I think it's only used once.
The
shuttle seems lovely. I
feel sorry for the shuttle.
I did also think, because the shuttle seems reasonably intelligent, like it's a person, right?
But is it? But it's definitely. But this is what I'm saying. Like the rationale for Horza not liking the culture is a bit bizarre, because there seems to be these AI entities like the shuttle that would probably have the same intelligence level of like someone with a really low IQ.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a spectrum of intelligence through these books, and I mean, we're sitting.
Do you think they're sentient though? Like,
I mean, we're sitting in a room with a dog and a cat.
Yeah, well, but
the dog won't shut up. But
they're sentient though.
Yeah, but they can certainly express their desires to us, frequently with loud woofing.
I was just going to say, I've got a cat who's expressing its desire to sit on my lap very strongly right now, and it's probably going to maybe rub its face on the...
If only he'd settle down and not rub his face on the microphone. Yeah. So, but the shuttle is definitely at the lower end, and certainly at a level that Horza can outsmart. And Horza's not that bright.
You don't think Horza's that bright?
Oh, he's bright for a human, but
he's more brawn, isn't he?
Yeah.
Brawn than brain.
Yeah, but Horza with his dealings with the shuttle. I mean, he's obviously got normally got compunctions about killing things. He doesn't care about this.
Oh, that's a good point.
He's like, I will outsmart it and I will kill it.
Yeah.
Having said that, I feel sorry for the shuttle when it's describing how, here it is. I was too old-fashioned and crude for the culture, I thought they could have upgraded me, but they didn't. They just gave me away.
I know when he says, they told me not to watch if some of the people don't want to be rescued.
Yeah.
They thought I'd get too sad. Yeah. I'm not quoting from the book there, by the way.
No, but anyway, the shuttle's lovely, and then Horza, the way he tricks the shuttle into telling him where its brain is, I mean,
Oh no, it was not fair.
But noticing you're empathising more with the shuttle than you empathise with the tortured humans.
Oh, I did feel sorry for 27.
Oh, well, that's something.
I really did.
Okay.
I mean, what sort of, rigmarole did they go through to get into the situation where they were? That's another story.
Well, once you sign up to a cult. And then just the one word Horza says when he kills the shuttle. Mug.
I know!
Very dismissive. And then we get... So Horza's on the shuttle, he's figured out how to fly it, he's taken off into the air, left a fingerful of bones smouldering in the fire. And then...
do you think his bone, can they, come back alive like an Evil Dead?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think that's... Whatever you took today, I'd like some. Okay, and then we get to the Interlude in Darkness, which is partly describing that the mind is scurrying around in these command tunnels.
Oh, so are we going to the subchapter?
Yeah.
Alright, what's it called? Oh, sorry, it's called Interlude in Darkness. Sorry, didn't know.
It's like you haven't read the book.
I did not like these subchapters.
Okay. What did you take out of this one?
I don't like these minds.
Mm.
Well, this is the mind that we met from the beginning.
Well, we didn't really meet it at first. We just had some of its actions described. But now we're kind of really getting inside its head.
Yeah, I don't know. They seem a bit...
Its enormous, colossal head, which makes up thousands of planets.
I mean, they're definitely about self-preservation. I mean, I guess what...
Oh, this mind is talking about, it's just started and it could be so much and it doesn't want to die. But we are getting a bit of foreshadowing with the nature of the command tunnels on Char's World that this mind's scurrying around in.
Yeah, and they clearly don't want to be caught by the Draazon?
Yeah.
Remind me who the Draazon are again exactly.
The Draazon are basically godlike beings that have mostly transcended our physical universe, but for their own reasons have kept these planets of the dead as memorials to past futility.
So why don't they just sort this culture war out?
Well, they're not interested in it. It's beneath them.
Right.
But this is why the culture and the Adirans both don't want to piss the Draazon off.
Oh, because if the Draazon gets involved, it's over.
Yeah. I mean, there's also given a sense here that the mind is largely crippled in this form on the planet, that it's had to basically, zip down most of it, compress most of its higher functions to exist in this mortal plane.
I thought the description of how much memory it could hold was...
That was a lot of this subchapter, yeah.
Definitely written in a time pre-computers.
Sure.
Because I was like, well, wouldn't you be like, it holds this many minutes
Gigabytes.
of music or...
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Which is very, when iTunes came out, or, hard drives, it could hold 5 million songs.
Yeah.
Obviously Ian M. Banks didn't really think through that's where...
Well, it was 1982 when we weren't really explaining computers to the general public.
Yeah, but he's a science fiction writer.
Yeah, well, he's trying to explain to the general public, isn't he? The general public of 1982.
I would have thought the general public of 1982 would be it can hold 1,000 songs. Oh, maybe not, I guess, because they hadn't been through the first, like, CDs. Yeah. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. And then remember when MP3 CDs came out and the CD went from being able to hold an hour of music to 500 hours of music. Yeah. There is a little line here of the mind saying, hoping that whoever came to find it would be friendly. Yeah, never is it? And finally acknowledging perhaps it had made a mistake in escaping it all. So that's kind of, it gets the end. The mind is floating around in the darkness. Who's your MVP for this chapter?
27.
Why is he your MVP?
I just feel so sorry for him.
Okay.
He was suffocated by a giant fat person's asshole.
After having most of his extremities eaten.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really was not good for him.
I think I would have been glad to be sat on after having my extremities nibbled on for a long and leisurely meal. I mean, those metal teeth didn't sound pleasant.
They didn't. Anyway, who's yours?
Oh, I would say the shuttle.
Yeah.
He seemed nice. He deserved better. He deserved better from the culture as well. True. Why didn't they upgrade him? Why did they just give him away to these nasty mega ship owners? I told you,
they're horrible. They're assholes.
All right, what's the next chapter, Sheridan?
It is called A Game of Damage!
Hey!
That means we get to see damage, and I think what's going to happen is Horza's luck is going to come out. Oh my god, this chapter is... Oh my god! It's so long! Alright, I better start that tomorrow.
Yep. How many pages?
Oh god, I'm not very good at counting, but it's at least 50.
Okay.
I was told when I started this podcast that these chapters were 10 to 15 pages, and that is why I picked a weekly podcast.
Okay, and thanks folks for listening, and we will be back as soon as Sheridan's read the chapter. And hopefully it won't be too long.
Definitely won't be more than 2 weeks.
Okay, hooray!